Hey there, this is Alex Newton with Radiant Coffee Roasters, recording a video today about growing your market business, and some of the things involved with that. Um, so, every business is different, every business model is going to be different. So my experience lies specifically with coffee, food service, food processing, that kind of stuff. Um, so one of the hardest things about getting started is creating a business model and making it a sustainable one. So something I do to kind of align our business with a sustainable business model is I look at other companies who are in a similar space as us. Um, we're going on year 5 of operating. But when I first started, I had experience in the industry, but I didn't have experience in starting and growing a business and didn't know what my actions and movements to grow the business would look like once they were completed and how they would look a year, 2 years out. So a big resource when, making movements and decisions about how to grow your business is to look at other businesses in a similar space and see what they're doing, what they're advertising, what they're leaning into, because there's no way to actually know until you've done it. But if you look at other people who are doing something similar, you can, it's oftentimes there's a reason why they do it that way. And and that goes from like pricing, menu offerings. So for us, it's when we first started out, we tried to have really competitive pricing, and we did, and still do, but we did have super competitive pricing for a long time. And we were able to have that as an offering from our business because kept the overhead so low. As we grew, we found ourselves having to make more obligate long-term obligations and having higher overhead, and our prices crept up accordingly. And I think that's another thing in the small business world is we're so connected with our customers and the people we do business with that I think a lot of small market businesses are very price sensitive, and it's harder for us to charge what it costs. But I think aspect of sustainable businesses is charging what it costs to produce things. So if you're selling at a very small margin or at a loss, that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for you or your business, but it's also not sustainable for the customer base because if I sell coffee for a loss, they might benefit for a year, but I will eventually go out of business and they won't get those great deals anymore. So I think that um, looking at a business model and pricing and stuff like that is if you're in the small market space and food space, it is expensive. So, expect your pricing not to be competitive with grocery stores or corporations or things like that. Um, but if you look at, other businesses that are doing markets, or maybe they used to do markets and their business evolved into doing something else. If you look at their pricing or the way they do things, that usually is a good indicator of what works for them and what will likely work for you. Something else might work for you. You might, find a new way to do things, and I think that's always awesome. And you shouldn't just follow industry standards, but oftentimes industry standards exist because they are sustainable. So looking at people who are 5 to 10 years down the road from you is a great way to map out a business model and kind of say like our business will likely fall within these parameters. Could be slightly different, but that's what will be sustainable is doing what the people who are around and have been around for 10 plus years are doing. That is likely what you will find is sustainable. Um, Managing growth expenses is another really hard part about growing. My mentality when looking at growing, the spending that's associated with that is my goal is to ultimately, when you're first starting out, the first 5 years, they always say is the roughest. I think it is most likely. I mean, I don't. We're only on year five, so maybe it's the next 5 years are also just gonna be as rough as the last five. But I think it does start to get a little bit easier after you have a business model that is set and you are building upon it and you found some success within that. But my mentality with growth expenses, especially when you're in those first 5 years, is you should be looking for ways to justify expenses that strengthen and make your business more robust. So a good example for us was when we first started, we only did drip coffee and coffee beans. Um, I wanted to add espresso to our lineup because I thought it made us our offerings more robust. It created an entirely different dynamic for the booth to be offering that. But it came with a lot of associated costs, the equipment, thousands of dollars of equipment, extra staffing. Now we need someone to man the espresso machine. But my mentality when making that growth transition was I'm not looking to profit off of it. I'm just looking for ways to justify the expenses because even if we don't make money off of it, it makes our business more robust and explores avenues of growth. Um, so for me, when I made that specific transition, um, I needed to bring on someone else, and they might, let's just use a nice round number and say they would cost $100 a day. Um, I was of the mentality that if I bring someone on, now I have a resource, which is that person and their time and their energy and whatever unique capabilities and personality that they bring to the team and the environment. All I had to do to keep that going was find a way how to make that person's presence generate $100 in revenue. And then if I could do that, now we're two people working, which is way more just opens up the possibilities a lot more to have a team working instead of just one person. Um, so, that it might be sometimes it's difficult to make that transition because if you don't have that $100 to bring that person on that day, um, that's money you might lose and it's difficult. But I think oftentimes, every time I've done it, I make that transition. I say I'm going to bring them on. I just have to find a way for them to generate $100. They've always generated the money. I mean, just even having them there at the booth, their presence, their personality, the community, interactions and stuff were beneficial for the business. We sold more coffee. They might have sold someone a cup of coffee and then had, now we have more time to talk because we're two people, and they might have sold an extra bag of beans because of that. So what I've always found was, your job as the business owner or operator is to create an environment that you can bring someone into and they have opportunities to create uh, revenue and growth for themselves and the business, and you just both mutually benefit. And that's always worked out for me. Um, but yeah, I think the first 5 years, it's not necessarily thinking what will make me money. It's all your thinking needs to be, um, how do I create a business that is competitive and actually offers a product that is valuable? Because it's hard to create valuable products. It takes a team of people, it takes capital, it takes circumstance, it takes all these things to create a valuable product. Um, Once you have a valuable product, then you might make profit off of it, but your first step should be create a valuable product. And the first 5 years, it should just be looking for ways to justify how to make your product and your offerings stronger, more robust. I actually had my market staff, they would make fun of me because every week we would have a new upgrade to the booth, whether it's just something simple like, um, now we have an extra milk pitcher to steam, or we have a scale or a temperature probe, an extra temperature probe, just tiny little things. We have a new sign, something new that's aesthetic, because my goal the first years was just to create the best booth I could. So it took a lot of investment and a lot of little tiny upgrades that you might go, wow, that cost that much money. But in the grand scheme of things, if you create a successful, operation, that's going to be very valuable. And Yeah, so I think, that's where your mindset has to kind of be. You have to be looking for ways to spend money to strengthen your team and your product. Obviously the bottleneck to that is capital and money. And as a small business, that's definitely the hardest part about starting is having the money to do so. Some people have money to start, other people don't. Some people get investors, some people use credit. Um, we started on credit cards specifically. Used a lot of zero interest, zero APR credit card offers, and just kind of rotated those for years. I think that's an avenue of growth that if you don't have money or investors, you have to explore and you have to be willing to take on some risk. Because if you spend that money on your business and you strengthen your business will grow and make more money. Um, so you have to kind of, as you're starting out, you have to take some amount of risk. You want to manage that risk by having, set markers. So if you say I'm going to invest $10,000 in my market setup, you might invest that money and then you say, well, I can't invest anything until I have this amount of return on that. And so for us, that was a process of about 2 years where continuously reinvested any profit we had, and continually took every low interest credit opportunity we had. And after 2 years, we were able to actually pay off all of our debt, which wasn't a ton. I mean, it was a lot for us at the time, but we were able to slowly grow and use those credit opportunities until about year two when we hit a nice little point where we paid off all that debt. Um, and we were at that point, we were still a very small new business. And right when we paid off all that debt, we went back into debt because you have to be willing to take on some amount of risk when you're starting a business and especially growing. So we took on more debt. But it was essential for us to not over leverage ourselves and to have that point 2 years in where we were debt free. And I think that's how you kind of have to manage it, whether it's yearly, 2 years in, 3 years in. I don't, it just depends on your capital and your business plan and stuff. But for us, it was 2 years in, we were able to become debt free. And that was also the sign that this is worth investing in. It's working. If we invest more money, we can expect more of what just happened, which was growth and eventual payoff of debt. So I think you set those benchmarks, you have to take on some risk, look for non-conventional opportunities for financing and credit, take those risks and have benchmarks where, you have to hit this number by this day. It can't just be always pushed off into the future, but slowly leveraging and paying it off as you go is that's one good way to manage your growth expenses. Um, like I said earlier too, hiring staff, that's a hard thing to navigate as you grow because while the examples I gave in terms of equipment and growth on doing that all on credit, it's easier to say I'm going to buy $10,000 worth of product and once I sell it, I'll be debt free or we'll have this much money and it's a very one-to-one payoff. Or if it's equipment, you might say I'm going to buy this piece of equipment, it'll make me this much per day, it'll pay itself off in this amount of time. Those are very financial numbers based things. Hiring people is a little bit harder because when you first start out, you might not know how to utilize people's time and the team's time efficiently. So when we first started out, we had a lot of times where we would bring someone on and not have an efficient way for them to make money on the team because we were still navigating and exploring what we could offer, the best way to offer it, the best way to, commodify it. So for me, when I first started out, basically my mentality when bringing people on was, if it's going to cost me $100 to bring someone on a market day, um, when I first started out, it was just me. So, bringing one person on, let's just use a round number and say $100 a day. I just have to find a way for having another person on the team to make $100. So there's a lot of ways I can do that. There's, um, one, we can produce more, we can sell more cups of coffee. So that's a super easy way for that person to add value to the team. Another way is upselling things. So now that we have two people and we can talk to customers a little bit more, we can spend more time talking about coffee, how coffee's grown, how it's processed, how we brew it, our philosophy behind it, and that gives more value to the transactions. So now, whereas before maybe someone was going to stop and get a cup of coffee and it was just me and I'm hustling and running around, and I just gave them the coffee and had to move on to the next thing. Now we have two people, so maybe I can sit there and talk with them for a few minutes, and maybe that'll spark their interest enough to also buy a bag of beans. Um, so, my goal is you have to grow, you have to grow your team, you have to bring people on, you have to free up your time as the owner operator to do other things and to also manage and grow the business. I mean, which is your ultimate job. But so yeah, I would, bring someone on. I'd say I just need to find various ways for this person to add $100 of value to the day, and then their time and their wages is paid for. I don't need to make money off of them necessarily. I just need to strengthen the team and grow the team and find ways not to lose money on it. And over time, this extra person's presence will be valuable and beneficial to the business. But when you first bring them on, it's just about finding ways to chip away at that labor cost because um, once you have the shift established and set up, you have an expected amount of revenue that's going to come from that person being around. When you're first starting, you have to kind of be more dynamic and flexible with the type of value they can add and bring. Um, so yeah, that's how I usually would bring people on, and it's always worked for me. I never had a time when I brought someone on and said, "Okay, we need an extra person. Um, I just need them to make $100," and I wasn't able to find a way for them to make $100. Um, Now, that's when you're first really starting out. Another area to when you start looking at, growing your team and the costs associated with that is once you kind of, let's say you become busy. So, when you're first starting out, you're most likely not going to be busy because it takes time to develop a customer base, for people to know what you offer, for you to improve your offerings. So you're most likely not going to be like very busy when you first start out. It's going to take some time to grow to there. But once you become very busy, um, now you have to staff more for that, and you have to be ready to handle these big rushes and stuff like that. So for us, a hard part about growing the team was when we finally, became busy, and then we went into our slow season for the first time, not properly cutting back on hours and staffing. So we would go from summer, which was super busy, to winter, and we kept everyone on, kept the shifts the same, and we lost a lot of money. So I think with that, it's you have to kind of understand that things are cyclical, whether they're seasonal or time of day. And you have to, when you bring people on, you have to have a very good communication about how the flow of the work and labor and stuff. So like as a market business, there is a very strong sense of seasonality with the work and everything. So making sure that people understand that and preparing your business to handle the changes of seasons, and kind of revert to its smaller self during the slow times. So that's another, aspect of managing a team that kind of takes some time and experience to deal with. But um, yeah, if you can find a way to pay for people's time, and it's so hard not to a lot of time because the market is just such a great interpersonal space that the so much value of what's going on is the person to person interaction. So having another person there that is interested in the community and the products that are being offered is a very valuable thing. Yeah, that's kind of how I viewed like the team and bringing people on and growing and stuff in the market space. Um, Another thing when you're first starting out is like getting into new markets, stores, and stuff like that. Um, this is probably gonna be the hardest, maybe the hardest part of growing a business. Something that's really great about the market space is there's businesses of all different sizes. So if you're looking at like a bakery or something, for example, or a coffee shop, there might be like when I first started, we were roasting on a 1 pound roaster, just micro roaster. I mean, no, not even, I wouldn't even classify that necessarily as commercial. It's so small. And then you have, now we operate on a 20 pound roaster. So in both of those sizes of businesses can exist at the market. Um, so, you know, growing between the sizes and stuff is really hard. And as you try and compete for new accounts and wholesale opportunities and stuff, you're going to find associated costs with that. So, um, what I have found in my experience, most of our growth in these spaces comes from um, personal, relationships. Every market that I'm in, it came from knowing the market manager through the Portland farmer market community, and every store I'm in came from when I used to deliver pasture raised meat to various small grocery stores and stuff. So I think in the market community, the number one thing about getting into new markets and stores and stuff is um and even bridging outside the market community into the associated types of businesses, whether it's like small grocery stores or retail brick and mortar food stores, that kind of stuff, is developing and maintaining personal relationships with the various people, um and there's a lot of other things you can do to grow for these types of things, like if you have a product and you want to get it into a lot of stores, then putting time and energy into like packaging and stuff like that is going to be important. But it depends on your product. But for me, I found that developing relationships with and having conversations with the people in the community and stuff opens up opportunities, whether it's wholesale accounts or new markets, things like that. Um, but yeah, growing is super hard because, or growing into these opportunities is hard because you're directly competing with businesses that might be 5, 10 years more established than you. So usually whenever, like, for us, when we're going looking to maybe add a wholesale account or something like that, we, we can't necessarily compete on pricing, or sometimes we can't compete on the range of coffees that someone has, but what we can compete on is our consistency and the amount of commitment and hands-on work that we do with the product in the community. So, if we go to a wholesale partner, kind of what we're trying to sell is that we are here for the whole experience, and that includes 35-degree sideways driving, uh, rainy, windy market days. Our main goal is to be a staple of the market community because we believe in the values and way of operating that the community uh, supports and promotes. So, if we're trying to offer our services or our product to someone else, accurately representing who we are and what we do, um, is kind of the main avenue we do that. We can, if we're trying to sell coffee, there's a lot of people that sell coffee. But for us, it's more so about the values and the intentions behind the product. Um, and so, yeah, I think, just having conversations with people in the community, and stuff like that about those types of things opens up opportunities and stuff, for, whether it's wholesale accounts or new markets or anything like that. So, yeah, that's kind of just a jumbled quick ideas about, growing your small market business. I think to sum it up, you're gonna have to take some risks, um, but manage your overhead. Uh, don't make long-term commitments until you have some foundation to back those commitments on. Stay small, stay versatile, stay nimble so that when things change, because they will be changing every single day for the first 5 years, when things change, you can accurately adjust and shift your business to, work within that framework. So, yeah, thanks.